The NFL rarely gives fifth-round quarterbacks a real shot. They're camp arms, clipboard holders, projects. Shedeur Sanders was supposed to fit that mold, another name inflated by legacy. Instead, Joe Burrow watched him dismantle that expectation live. Against a Bengals team hungry for turnovers, Sanders didn't just survive, he dictated. He moved the offense with clarity, adjusted protections mid-snap, and never once flinched under pressure. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Burrow's response? He praised the traits that don't show up in stat sheets: poise, cognitive control, and the type of leadership that forces veterans to follow. And that's what makes this shift so striking. In a league obsessed with fast starts and flash, Sanders is earning ground the hard way, through meetings, tape, and technical execution. His motto, dig one, ditch better, dig two, isn't just philosophy, it's strategy. Cleveland isn't building around him because of potential. They're following his pace because it's proven, as Burrow validated. This isn't a rookie developing into a leader. This is a quarterback who arrived already prepared to carry the weight. This wasn't a quote that got buried in a post-game transcript. Joe Burrow made it known loud and clear that what Shedeur Sanders is doing isn't normal. It's exceptional, and not because of flashy plays or viral clips, but because of what Burrow, as a peer, respects most: command, control, and consistency. Things you don't usually see in a rookie. Things you almost never see from a fifth-rounder. But Sanders is rewriting expectations in real time, and Burrow's praise was the NFL's unofficial green light to start taking him seriously. When you step back and look at the full picture, it's not just that Sanders is playing well. It's how he's doing it. He's not riding momentum. He's building infrastructure. His rhythm at the line, his calm in the pocket, his decision-making under fire. It all points to someone who understands the mental part of the game. And Burrow, who made a name for himself doing exactly that, didn't need to see a stat sheet. He just needed to watch him play. That's why the moment hits so differently. Burrow isn't one to throw around compliments. He doesn't waste time on narratives. So when he praises someone, especially someone young, it lands like a seismic event. And it wasn't just praise, it was a validation. He didn't highlight Sanders' athleticism or potential. He highlighted his process, his temperament, his precision, the intangible stuff that actually makes or breaks a quarterback in the NFL. That shift from praising highlight reel ability to acknowledging on-field discipline is everything. Because let's be honest, Sanders wasn't supposed to matter this quickly. Fifth-round picks are treated like long-term backups. If they're lucky, they aren't expected to walk into an unstable franchise and become the fulcrum of the offense. But that's exactly what Sanders has done. He hasn't just stepped in, he's stabilized. He hasn't just executed plays, he's controlled tempo. That's not projection, that's reality. And what makes this all the more significant is the environment he walked into. Cleveland hasn't exactly been a quarterback-friendly destination. Inconsistency up front, a run game that struggles, weapons still developing chemistry. Yet Sanders isn't just surviving it, he's owning it, and he's doing it without complaining, without excuses, without pointing to anything other than the work. That kind of mental toughness isn't just rare, it's disruptive. It forces people to reconsider what NFL ready actually means. And Joe Burrow saw that. He recognized the real markers of quarterback growth: poise under pressure, discipline in decision-making, and emotional control when the game starts to speed up. Those are the things that separate temporary success from long-term viability. And those are the exact traits Burrow zeroed in on. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a coded message to the rest of the league. Because let's not forget, Burrow came up the hard way too. Took hits, fought through chaos, proved doubters wrong with calm execution, and a relentless commitment to the mental side of the game. So when he sees those same qualities in someone else, it's not a compliment, it's recognition. And the fact that it came during a Bengals game only adds to the weight. This wasn't preseason. This wasn't garbage time. It was a real game against a top-tier defense in a high-pressure divisional setting. And Sanders showed not just that he could hang, but that he could dictate pace. Burrow saw it. The league saw it. and everything shifted because for all the conversation about Shedeur being Dion's son, that narrative is officially expired, not by rejection, but by performance. Burrow didn't dismantle the framing with words. He did it by pointing to Sanders' habits, his growth, his leadership. And in doing so, he forced everyone to see what the people inside Cleveland's building already know. This guy's not here to be famous. He's here to be great. And the way he's going about it, it's as unflashy as it is undeniable. Sanders doesn't post film breakdowns online. He studies them in silence. He doesn't clap back at critics. He just shows up early, leads meetings, takes responsibility, and keeps climbing. His leadership isn't theatrical, it's structural. And that's why the veterans are already buying in. The trust is there. The tone of the offense is shifting. And that has nothing to do with his last name and everything to do with the kind of professional he's choosing to be. That's the difference. Because this league is filled with young quarterbacks who can throw a ball 70 yards. What separates Sanders is what happens before the throw, the processing, the awareness, the emotional regulation. When chaos hits, he doesn't freeze. He doesn't force. He adjusts. He adapts. And he does it like someone who's been in the league for years, not weeks. And as that continues to show up on film, the narrative around him is being forced to evolve. Coaches are starting to point to his preparation. Teammates are praising his corrections. His approach is winning over an entire building. And now, it's catching the attention of the entire league, all without a single demand for attention. He's not leveraging his dad's name. He's exceeding it, not through rejection, but through work, through results, through ownership of every moment, every mistake, every opportunity. That's why the Dig One Ditch, Better Dig Two motto is more than just a quote. It's a thesis, a roadmap. It's the perfect expression of his entire approach, one that prioritizes depth, foundation, and mastery over spectacle. It's not about looking finished. It's about doing the excavation to become unshakable. And that mindset, that's what guys like Joe Burrow taking notice. Because this league doesn't need more quarterbacks who chase the spotlight. It needs ones who build from the ground up, who lead with steadiness, who understand that legitimacy is earned in the silence, on the practice field, in the meeting room, in the way teammates start to listen when you talk. That's the quiet revolution Sanders is leading. And the impact goes beyond Cleveland. It's a referendum on how the NFL evaluates talent. It's a challenge to every assumption about pedigree, polish, and projection. And it's all happening not with fireworks, but with film, with focus, with the kind of maturity that forces everyone to reevaluate what quarterback success is supposed to look like. So if you're watching this unfold and thinking, yeah, this feels different, you're right. It is. Because Shedeur Sanders is doing more than proving he belongs. He's redefining what belonging means. And the people who matter, they see it. If you've been tracking his rise, hit that like. If you got thoughts on Burrow's recognition or on how Sanders is changing the quarterback playbook, drop them in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you do. Because these aren't just headlines. These are the moments that shape the future of the league. And we're going to be here for all of them. One play, one shift, one story at a time. You can feel the shift happening. You can hear it in the way analysts are talking about him now. You can see it in the way Cleveland's offense is starting to mirror his rhythm. And most of all, you can sense it in the respect that's growing, not from fans, not from media, but from the guys inside the league. Because when someone like Joe Burrow speaks, people listen. And what he said about Shedeur Sanders wasn't small. It wasn't surface level. It was targeted, focused. It was a breakdown, not a soundbite. He wasn't applauding talent. He was spotlighting traits. Traits that Burrow knows are required to survive the gauntlet of being an NFL quarterback. And let's be real, this kind of commentary doesn't just come out of nowhere. Burrow didn't just decide to praise Sanders because he saw a few nice throws. He watched the decision-making, the timing, the ability to stay calm when the pocket was collapsing. He saw a guy who was managing chaos without flinching, who wasn't asking for help, who was quietly organizing his team in real time. He saw someone operating like a quarterback. That distinction matters. Because you know what most rookies do when the blitz hits? They panic. They roll out too soon. They miss the hot read. They play afraid. But Sanders? He absorbs it, adjusts, He gets the ball out, on time, in rhythm, and if the read isn't there, he doesn't force it. He recalibrates. That kind of awareness isn't something you coach into someone overnight. That's why Burrow's praise was diagnostic. He saw it with a quarterback's eye, the behavioral signals, the mental quickness, the emotional steadiness. That's what separated a guy who plays quarterback from someone who is a quarterback. And now, that recognition is forcing people to confront what's actually happening in Cleveland. Because for all the talk of how unstable the Browns have been at QB for years, suddenly things look different. And it's not because someone came in yelling for change. It's because someone came in, stayed quiet, and became the change. Shedeur Sanders is showing the league what leadership looks like when it's built on behavior, not bravado. Let's go back to that phrase again. Dig one ditch, better dig two. On the surface, it's cryptic, but in context, it's everything. It's a philosophy, a rejection of shortcuts, a warning against performative growth. It's about building real depth, knowing that for every visible success, there's an invisible layer of prep that made it possible. That's how Sanders works. No theatrics, just trenches. And the trenches are where trust is built. You don't win over NFL veterans with swagger. You win them over by being reliable, by doing the little things, knowing the playbook, staying poised, correcting yourself before a coach has to. That's what earns you the nod from teammates. That's what gets guys like Burrow to start pointing in your direction and saying, yeah, he's got it. And the thing is, it's not just talk anymore. We're watching it unfold. Statistically, Sanders is on an upward trend. His TD to INT ratio is tightening. His timing's improving. His command of the offense is growing. And he's doing it in a system that's still finding itself. This isn't some plug-and-play offense stacked with pro bowlers. This is a work in progress. And he's not just managing it. He's anchoring it. He's becoming the gravitational center. The receivers look sharper with him. The line communicates cleaner. The pace feels more intentional. These are things that don't show up on a stat sheet, but they change games. They change seasons. And when a rookie can walk into an NFL building and start doing that, that's not normal. That's transformational. And Burrow knew it because he lived it. When he got to Cincinnati, it wasn't polished either. He had to build it, brick by brick, through injuries, through doubt, through skepticism about whether the Bengals could ever not be a mess. So when he sees that same foundation being laid in Cleveland by a rookie no one expected to start, of course he's going to acknowledge it, because it's rare, and it's real. This is a part of the NFL people don't see enough. The process of becoming a real leader. Not just a face of a franchise, but the function of it. The one who makes sure the gears keep turning, even when everything around you is uncertain. That's what Shedeur Sanders is doing. And maybe the most impressive part? He doesn't seem remotely interested in proving people wrong. He's just focused on proving himself right. That he belongs. That he can lead. That all the off-field noise and inherited expectations are just that. Noise. What matters is whether your team believes in you. And right now, his team does. They're watching the film. They're seeing the adjustments, the early mornings, the extra reps, the quiet accountability. And that's the stuff that sticks. Because the NFL is brutal. It's fast. It exposes you. And it rewards people who respond, not with ego, but with execution. And that's the exact energy Sanders is bringing. So yeah, Joe Burrow said what needed to be said. That Sanders isn't just a promising young player. He's already operating on the level that matters. He's not just catching up to the speed of the league. He's processing in real time. That's not potential. That's readiness. And the more that becomes obvious, the more the league is going to have to revisit some uncomfortable truths. Like how many players like Sanders get overlooked because they don't fit the prototype. How many coaches and GMs still prioritize optics over output. And how often leadership is mistaken for charisma instead of what it really is, preparation, composure, and presence. That's the legacy Sanders is writing right now. Not just as a player breaking out his father's shadow, but as a quarterback defining himself through work, through control, through the kind of leadership you can't fake and can't ignore. And now, thanks to Burrow, the rest of the league can't pretend not to see it. So if you've been nodding through this, if you've been watching Sanders' quiet takeover and thinking, this feels different, you're right. Because it is different. It's not loud. It's not curated. It's not desperate for clicks. It's just good football. And this is what makes Shedeur Sanders so disruptive. Not the flash, not the fame, not the last name, but the fact that he's doing everything right and doing it quietly. The NFL isn't used to that. It's used to rookies making noise first and proving themselves later, if at all. Sanders flipped that formula. He silenced the hype and let the tape do the talking. It's unnerving in the best way possible, because now defenses are starting to treat him differently, not as a rookie to rattle, but as a quarterback who can read you pre-snap, freeze you mid-play, and punish you post-snap. That's not earned in one game. That's the product of composure under pressure, a trait Joe Burrow explicitly pointed out. Because when someone like Burrow praises your calm, it means he knows exactly how hard it is to stay that way. Sanders' game is built on micro-decisions. When to throw, when to step up, when to trust a route, when to eat the play. That's quarterbacking. That's what wins games long-term. The stuff nobody puts on a highlight reel, because it doesn't jump off the screen, but it changes outcomes. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because now we're not just talking about Sanders' impact on Cleveland. We're talking about his impact on the league's mindset. Front offices have to look at this and ask themselves, what else are we missing? What other guys with this level of poise and processing are being filtered out because they're not loud enough or because they're not drafted high enough? That's the uncomfortable question Sanders is forcing into every scouting room. Because again, he wasn't drafted for this. He was slotted for a backup role, a project, a maybe one day guy. That's how the system saw him. And now, not even halfway through his first season, he's commanding an offense, earning trust, and being acknowledged by one of the league's most respected players. He didn't sneak up on anyone. He just worked harder than the story allowed. And that's the power of what Burrow said. It wasn't just about Sanders. It was about the culture, about recalibrating what we value. Do you want someone who looks good in pregame warm-ups? Or someone who can walk into chaos, settle a huddle, and keep everyone on script? Because that's what's actually happening. Veterans are listening to him. Coaches are building around him. The playbook is evolving with him. All in real time. All without a single media campaign pushing his narrative. That's not noise. That's trust. It's rare. It's fragile. And Sanders hasn't mishandled it once. He doesn't overstep. He doesn't showboat. He doesn't try to prove anything through antics. He just shows up with the work, the knowledge, the control. That's how you lead professionals. That's how you take a job most rookies aren't supposed to survive and make it your own. And Burrow saw it instantly. Because of someone like Burrow, who's carried a franchise on his back, it takes 5 minutes of watching to know whether a guy gets it, whether he sees the game at tempo, whether his confidence comes from understanding, not bravado. And Sanders passed that test, in front of Burrow, in a game that meant something with the whole league watching. So now, there's no putting this back in the bottle. This isn't a blip. It's a blueprint for what rookie quarterbacks can look like when you stop overvaluing theatrics and start valuing discipline, when you scout for processing speed instead of production volume, when you pay attention to what a guy does on 3RD and 8 with the pocket collapsing, not just what he posts online. Shedeur Sanders is offering a live-action tutorial on why the old way of evaluating quarterbacks needs a reboot. And he's not demanding credit. He's just being undeniable. That's why Joe Burrow's words mattered. Because he didn't say, he's got potential. He said, he already is what matters. It wasn't a nod to what could be. It was an acknowledgement of what is. And in the quarterback fraternity, that kind of respect isn't handed out. It's earned through reps, through reads, through everything that happens when nobody's watching. And Sanders? He's been building in the shadows long before the season started. You can tell. The emotional regulation, the humility, the way he holds teammates accountable without grandstanding, the ability to adapt in real time. All of that points to someone who's not just playing the role, but actually being the role. It's why he doesn't need to reject his dad's legacy to make his own. He's doing it by exceeding it, not through noise, but through nuance. And that's a problem for anyone still holding on to the idea that franchise quarterbacks have to look, act, or sound a certain way. Because Sanders doesn't fit the prototype. He doesn't sell himself. He doesn't seek attention. He just keeps showing up and outperforming the projection. That's how you redefine a standard. So now every time someone says he's just Deion's son, it rings hollow because the people inside the game, the players, the coaches, the opponents, know that's not the story anymore. The story is that he's doing this the hard way, the right way. He's showing the league a new template. Start with preparation. Anchor in emotional control. Let your decisions speak louder than your interviews. And the crazy part? It's working faster than anyone predicted. Burrow didn't just see it. He validated it. He opened the door for a different kind of conversation. About leadership that doesn't shout. About performance that builds slowly but lands permanently. About redefining what it means to be ready in a system that too often mistakes hype for maturity. Shedeur Sanders didn't ask for this moment. He earned it. So if you've been watching this unfold week after week and wondering if anyone else was seeing what you're seeing, the poise, the presence, the quiet command, well, now you know. Joe Burrow saw it too, and he said it out loud, which means the league can't ignore it anymore. If you made it this far, you're one of the people who care about the details, who don't need a viral clip to understand what real growth looks like. So hit that like, drop a comment, share the conversation. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead, because we're going to keep following the players who are doing it differently. The ones changing the culture, not with volume, but with value. Because the future of the league isn't always the loudest guy in the room. Sometimes it's the one who shows up early, learns the system cold, and earns the respect of someone like Joe Burrow. That's Shedeur Sanders. And he's just getting started.